We are live.
Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself. I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin. Would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
It sure is, and we are live. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast.
Kevin, you're muted.
All right, let's do this again. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. Oh my gosh! Oh, what a tough start to the morning. And I hang on here. I think I've screwed up a couple of things, but welcome to the Hockey Podcast. Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we currently sit at 100 and I drew a blank on the jersey number. Pick a jersey number.
Is it 27?
It's 28.
28. Elias Lindholm.
100 and Elias Lindholm of subscribers, as well as you can subscribe to the audio shortly there. I was expecting to go fly solo, but a run-in happened, Devin. Devin messaged me this morning and said, hello, we're here. I can do this. Let's go. That's exactly what happened, right?
Yes. It's been a hectic morning. I actually just ate breakfast 5 minutes before I came on air. And I luckily had enough time to come on. So I'm happy that you're not flying solo and that we can tandem this.
All right. Yes. And Luis Manuel Texera says, haha, good start. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what's happened. It's a good start. And then I'll just tweet that we are live, and I'm not going to do the whole fancy thing on YouTube here, but you can, of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to talk about that. We'll get into some of the news of the day as well, but we'll start. Devin, you didn't comment, but with my new background, it is Montreal Canadiens Vegas Golden Knights shirts behind me. There.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And the Vegas Golden Knights come away with a 4-1 victory over the Montreal Canadiens last night. The first period, the first 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you would be pretty happy. They controlled the play. They kind of established the zone, did all the things that you needed to do. And then Shea Theodore kind of got a opportune goal to make it 1-0. And then the Canadiens started taking penalty after penalty after penalty, putting the Vegas Golden Knights. And it's not just that the power play, it's not only about the power play scoring, it's about the power play creating momentum, which it certainly did. And the second period, the Golden Knights took over. And the third period was basically a wash, and the Vegas Golden Knights come away with a 4-1 victory over the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, what a great start for Montreal. That's exactly what you're looking for going into an opposition building, especially in the playoffs. It's really too bad they couldn't get one there when they had all that pressure. The one thing I was wondering about was with Carey Price not getting that many. His first two shots were from the opposite end. They were straight from the opposite end, and he just put it down, played it to defense, and then the Canadiens went back up ice to go on attack again. So I was kind of curious on how he would respond within not having any action really for the first 5 to 7 minutes. But for Montreal's sake, God, they got to find a way to score. They have to, especially with that pressure and being on the road. And the crowd wasn't in it right away. I mean, yes, it was loud and it was crazy, but Montreal, they had a good push and was able to drown out that Vegas crowd. But they have to find a way to score within that first little bit. We talked about this last podcast. They need to score first. They need to, in order to gain momentum, in order for them to solidify themselves within that game, because you saw it once Theodore scored that one-timer up top. Man, that was world class. And I know revision is history, but well, when you look at the Anaheim Ducks, wouldn't they want and love to have a Shea Theodore right now over a Josh Manson or even a Sammy Vatanen who isn't there anymore? So yeah, a little bit of since the Seattle Kraken expansion is coming up here pretty soon in mid-July. That kind of narrative kind of rears its ugly head a little bit, but overall, I thought the Canadiens played well. Carey Price, amazing. The one save on the 2-on-1 with Mark Stone going to the net. I had the right mark, or I had the right Stone this time.
Yes, you did. Yeah, I'm very proud of you, actually.
Yes, I'm proud of myself too. And he had another big save coming across as well. But, well, I mean, not much you can do on the Alec Martinez goal. What a great play. Shea Theodore, again, sold the hell out of that slap shot and stopped at the last second, put it over Martinez. Martinez did a one-timer, and Carey Price was almost there again. So if Montreal has a chance, Carey Price has to keep on doing the things that he is doing, but they have to find a way to score. Yes, Cole Caulfield scored, but it was on the exact same play that they tried literally 3 seconds before, from behind the goal to the half boards to the slot for a shot. And this time, the first time went off the back of the boards and Caulfield missed behind the net. But the second time was off Tatar. Was it Tatar? I believe it's Tatar in the slot there. Toffoli was in the slot and he went far pad. And Caulfield was there to bang that one in. So, I really do expect Montreal to come out hard again this next time, but they really need to find, or this next game, but they really need to find a way to score when they do have that sustained pressure. And you got to expect that they are missing that little punch there up top.
Well, just to get back to the crowd here for a second, they sounded nervous at the start. Like they didn't it sounded like there was a bit of a nervous energy. They didn't know who this team was. I don't think they were super familiar. And I heard Habs goes chants in the crowd. So I do think that there was certainly a Montreal Canadiens presence in the crowd. And it almost felt like the Canadiens sort of had a little bit of home ice advantage. They jumped out, they put the pressure on. Fleury was solid at the start. He made a couple of big saves, and
except for that miscue behind the net at the very beginning, that was a little fishy. If you remember that, they dumped it in right off the bat, and then he gave the puck away. Oh man,
yeah,
little butt clenchy there for Fleury.
Sometimes with Fleury, he doesn't have that calmness of Carey Price. I mean, you can even see that on the 2-on-1 save. Like you just see Carey Price was like they tried to compare it to the Patrick Waugh wink. It was just Carey. He was smiling. It's just he was calm. But with Fleury, I mean, you even look back to, I think one of the turning points in the Colorado Avalanche series is in Game 3. He jumped up to the blue line and jumped after that puck. When he did that was like that. He's willing to take those chances, which work most of the time. But when they don't, it just looks disastrous. So that's the one difference. I wonder if one of the strategies going forward for the Canadiens is to make him play the puck, though.
Yeah, I think so. When you're in those situations, you want to gain some confidence within that, especially after that first little gaffe there. So like overall, you want to just keep on peppering him and rimming the puck around so he has to come and play it. And if he gets, ballsy enough to chuck it up, good possibility that that's going to be in the back of his mind and could definitely make the same mistake, if not worse.
Yeah. Now that I do think someone in the Montreal Canadiens also listened to our podcast on Sunday, because they started pushing and shoving, and it wasn't necessarily Josh Anderson, but there was one scrum early in the first on Pietrangelo specifically. Joel Edmondson pretty much made sure that he gave a little bit of a cross check to every single Golden Knight, that if you were wearing a Golden Knight jersey, you were getting a cross check for Joel Edmondson. Now, which I think is fine, but the problem became that they started to take too many penalties too. So I guess how do you're going to have to balance that out in some ways, but
yeah, you definitely will. In Edmondson, he's been there with St. Louis. He won the cup there, and he's a good, solid player, and it's one guy you do need within the playoffs. But yeah, they need to make sure that they stay out of the penalty box as much as possible. That power play can be very deadly and has been, and obviously last night showed it as well. So the one thing though about Josh Anderson, he needs to be more of a presence out there with whatever he's doing. In that first period, he had that drive to the net that was dangerous, but after that, you didn't see him.
Yeah,
Josh who, and especially after the first game of the playoffs against Toronto, he had one goal, and that is it. That's it. So he really needs to find his game and get comfortable within playing playoff hockey, because if he is not going, I don't see anybody else really that has up front there, other than maybe Noel Armia, that could potentially be that power forward to push that pace and get pucks in deep and bang and crash and do all the things that you need to do to be successful in the playoffs. And he's a big body, but maybe he's injured, and that was kind of the critique of him being traded, because we don't really know what type of player he is. We know the type of player he could be, and that's what Montreal was gambling on. And at the beginning of the year, it looked like a really good gamble by Bergevin to bring him in. But I think that really is resonating now, because he doesn't have that presence out there, which, being a big 6'4", 226-pound player, needs to be.
But to give Vegas some credit, that for their big four defensemen, Shea Theodore, who I think he's a foregone conclusion to be on the Olympic team if Canada goes, I'm assuming.
I think so. If I'd see him being more of a 7-6-7 player right now, okay. But yeah, definitely good possibility.
You've got Alex Pietrangelo, who they brought in from the Blues last year. Alec Martinez, who was a really solid defenseman, actually, and that was, that was a great shot by Martinez. But I also bid on the fake as well, I have to admit. That was just, oh my gosh.
If anybody thought that he was going to fake that shot on his, at, let's say, 3:00 as he's coming on his way down, and you thought that he was going to stop, I'm going to call bullshit on you, because I don't think anybody knew exactly what was happening there, other than maybe Martinez.
Yeah. But also Zach Whitecloud is another guy that I think he's really come along this year. He's played very well. And he's a rookie too. So I think to give the Knights, they weren't the Canadiens were able to get it inside early, but as the game went on, it was really the Vegas defense that was controlling the play for sure.
Yes, and Zach Whitecloud isn't even on that top three pairing, or he's on the third pairing with Nick Holden right now. Brayden McNabb is kind of a stay-at-home brute defenseman, big. He's a huge body, and he's playing with Shea Theodore right now. But I think I really wanted Martinez back when he got traded to the the Golden Knights for Calgary for that playoff run, because I thought that, he's very much like a DeMello type of player, and Martinez is probably just a bit higher than DeMello in the rankings, but he's a sneaky good player, and obviously he's playing top end minutes with Pietrangelo. So what a great pickup by the Golden Knights last year, and I would assume that in the offseason here, he is a UFA, that he'll be highly touted. He is 33 years old, so he's a bit older, but I could see him being a beneficial piece to a team if he doesn't re-sign with the Vegas Golden Knights, because he has won a cup with LA, I believe, back in the day, and he's definitely someone who could be courted by a lot of teams. But the credit to the Vegas Golden Knights decor, and altogether they played very well last night.
And then you also had, like, for the Canadiens too. I mean, Romanov, that hit early in the first period. That was a great hit. Perfect. Yep. Perfecto. Mwah. Magnifico. I'm sort of using. Yes, exactly. But they sure did miss Jeff Petrie, for sure.
Well, when you have a guy like that out for such a freak injury, it's really, you are going to miss him. You're not going to replace him. Being a top, he was your top 2 goal scorer this year, or a scorer in general this year, out of the entire team, which is ridiculous. And on top of that is the amount of minutes that he eats up during the night, and he's reliable. He can skate. He's a big body. He's an offensive threat. He's a good two-way defenseman that, Romanov, he can step into that role and try to limit the blow of losing a Petrie. But overall, you can't overstate that.
Yeah, and you can see, even on that first goal, I mean, and Craig Simpson pointed it out too, on that icing call, which was you're putting Eric Gustafsson on, and then the Vegas Golden Knights were able to match, and that's where you got the goal. So I think they're overall. I think we need also. I think if the Canadiens for game 2, I also think Nick Suzuki. Suzuki's been good, but I think at times the problem I think the big problem with the Canadiens, I think throughout this playoffs, is they've been fine for the most part, the forwards, but I think they've also been inconsistent when they struggled, when the Leafs were up 3-1. Those forwards were not. Nick Suzuki was not active. He was not as involved. When Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and I know that sometimes he's playing the wing, but when those and Philip Deneau are active, and the Canadiens forwards have a better opportunity. So specifically Suzuki, I think they need to get some consistency out of him as well. And even to be fair, I know that, for the Canuck fans out there, and you keep bringing up Tyler Toffoli, he's been fine, but I also don't know if I would rate him as consistent.
No, not at all. Consistency. You hit it right on the head. Consistency is key when you are in the playoffs. If you look at the time on ice, it's pretty spread out. It's pretty damn even, other than that top line of Suzuki, Deneau, and Toffoli. Other than that, everybody's around 14 minutes. The forward who had the least amount of ice time last night was Eric Stahl. And then you have one thing I'm trying to understand if what's going on with Brendan Gallagher. I know he has that hand injury, but is that limiting his ice time overall? And he can't get past it because we talked about a heart and soul player in him. He has been that for the Montreal Canadiens for years, and I thought he was very much warranted that contract extension that Bergevin gave him this year. Especially after the controversy of, bringing in a Josh Anderson to potentially replace him, or whatever the rumors were. And Bergevin squashed that with giving an extension. But you have to have that consistency throughout the lineup. And I think if you give that top line, even the top line and top 9 out of those forwards, more ice time, then it would be better for them to get in the rhythm, to get going, because I have not seen a player really like stand out too much, other than potentially Cole Caulfield, a rookie for God's sakes. And I if you're relying on a rookie to spike your team, God, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sort of wonder we spent a good chunk of our podcast on talking about the Tkachuk and what he was told to do. I feel like Gallagher in some ways is confused as to what his role is in Montreal. Like I mean, in order for to me, if the Canadiens are going to win this series, and the reason I think that this is going to go 7 is I think they've got the people that can get into under the skin of the Vegas Golden Knights. You've got Corey Perry who can do that, and I think Gallagher, that's part of his game, is getting under people's skin, and I didn't see that from him as much as I would like to last night. And the other loss in this, and hopefully he's back in the series, is Jake Evans. I do think Jake Evans is a loss here that I think that let's not forget him as well.
Well, he is traveling with the team. He is with the team right now, so there's definitely a possibility that he could get into the lineup, depending on how his concussion's going. And that's a delicate situation because he is a younger player and he does have that history. So if anybody would know anything about concussions and how to come back from it at a proper stage, it's him, which is a really shitty predicament to be in overall. But first of all, you don't want to rush that because he is so important to the Montreal Canadiens. And yes, you're in the semifinals of the Stanley Cup, but you definitely don't want to rush him. But that's a massive loss within that lineup. And even before Dominic Ducharme came in, Claude Julien, he didn't really know as far as Brendan Gallagher. He didn't really get the ice time that he normally gets. So I other than a injury that is really, really ailing him, other than his hand, I don't see why he hasn't been given the responsibility that he has been given in the past and be that high shooting player within the NHL, because he before the last 2 years, he has been one of the top shooters within the NHL. So it really does baffle me. And maybe there's a bit of a disconnect between him and the head coaches, or something along those lines. And I wouldn't be surprised if his name was out there going forward, as far as himself wanting to get out of this situation that he could be potentially in with the Montreal Canadiens. But that's all speculation. That's just my opinion. But he definitely needs to find his game.
Future poll question: Who says no to a Brendan Gallagher for Matthew Tkachuk trade?
Flames.
Maybe,
It'd have to be and.
Yeah,
Brendan Gallagher and I don't even know. That's something we could dive into for sure.
Yeah. What was those? Yeah. How big is Game 2 for the Canadiens? Is this
huge?
I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to get down 2-0 to Vegas, but although, I still don't know if I'm looking at a team that I think I'm still waiting to be proven on this killer instinct part per se. But I think if you come out with a split heading into Montreal, who I know that at this point there's 2,500 fans. But I wonder if we're going to hear a conversation about some more fans getting entered into the Bell Center there. I mean, here, just to rabbit trail this for a second, here in BC, we are in stage 2 as of today, so I can go to the movies if I want to after this, Devin. I can go to the gym if I want to. I have to wear a mask. So I mean, and you could I was out earlier and you can feel the energy. Like it feels a bit more busier now. And I do wonder in Quebec if there's going to be some, let's see if we can get a couple more fans in there. I'm not saying that they should or they shouldn't, but I do wonder about that. But so that would be, if that happens, I think it would be great. It would be good for the Canadiens to come out with a split.
I think anytime that you are the team that is home team for game 3 and 4. You do want it. That is your ultimate goal, to come out with a split within those first 2 games, no matter who you are, what series it is, what year it is. That is your goal, period, and stop. And then you it comes down to a best of 5. And you can't think about the big picture, but at the same time, you really need to a certain extent. Once you're in the game, you're in the game. But overall, even if the fans stay at 2,500, it's loud in there. God, it's a booming, rocking place in consideration. And maybe that's just because we haven't heard fans in the stands or in the arenas for a very long time, until basically the playoffs. Unless you're watching the down south teams, like a Nashville, like a Tampa Bay, like a Florida. So and Vegas, obviously, the Montreal fans are loud and proud, and even if they only have 2,500. It's still going to be a ruckus in there, and Montreal Canadiens can feed off of that, whether or not there are more in there or not. But I really hope that they can put more in there, because if they can get louder and more the fans on the Canadian side, then I think that definitely benefits a world-class city in Montreal, and a world-class hockey city overall. And nothing against Vegas. Vegas fans are fantastic. Obviously, they're loud. Multiple people have said that it's basically like a club with a hockey game going on inside of there. So it's I don't want to discount that, but I think the passion, there's no denying that the passion in Montreal is that much greater. And if you can get more people in, it'd be beneficial for sure.
123 new cases, 7-day average of 165. So I don't think I'm asking it. I don't think we had an unreasonable conversation there. I think that is a possibility, but we'll see about where the political pressure is at. Let's just also, in terms of let's just quickly jump to the Tampa Bay Islander series. I do have a clip that we will put up probably later this afternoon. I was hoping to have it up this morning, but I everything went to heck here. But Tampa Bay and the Islanders, it's the far too late series preview, but we did discuss it on Sunday's Hockey Podcast, and the Islanders came out with a 2-1 win over Tampa Bay. You talk about needing a win for Tampa Bay. That is, if you're Tampa Bay, you do not want to go down. Like we talk about crowds. It's a country club atmosphere in Vegas. That is not what the Nassau County Coliseum is. And if you're Tampa Bay, you don't want to go down 2-0 to the Islanders.
No. Even with all that firepower up front, I thought Islanders played once again. We're talking about road games, and the first 2 games. If you're the road team, you got to get at least one win, and they definitely did. So I think that they know that they're in a good spot, even if they do go down, or even if the Tampa Bay Lightning do tie it up. But Tampa, you gotta come out big. I don't know. They just didn't seem like they had too much like a jump within that game. It was a really good game, but you could just see the Islanders. They settled into a good rhythm, and it was back and forth. But overall, you got to give props to Barry Trotz and that hockey team over there, because they played very, very well. You have your defensive pairings of Pelech Pulak, and then you have Mayfield and Leddy, and I think that that top 4 defense is phenomenal, and they are so underrated because they play like a team. They play as a team, and that's Barry Trotz style overall. So I think that's one thing that the Tampa Bay Lightning need to figure out, how to penetrate that defense and get on the offense, because they just didn't seem like that everything was quite there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And once again, you got to give props to Braden Point. He scores goals when it fucking matters.
Yep.
Holy, that guy is a horse. He's a beast. Good Calgarian kid.
No, I no matter where he is from, but I mean, point taken, he's from Calgary. He would be one guy like that guy. Just if I was to, honestly, like as good as Nikita Kucherov is and if I had my pick of any Tampa Bay Lightning, and as good as Victor Hedman is, like I would take Braden Point from the Tampa Bay. I honestly would, because he's one of those guys that knows how to score at opportune times. But that, yeah, I mean, yeah, he does it again. And but the other thing with Tampa Bay, like you're right, I agree with you. They looked really flat. And Vasilevsky on the first goal, that wasn't a Vasilevsky allow type of goal. And just give the Islanders momentum. They were just allowed to play that game that they're wanting to dictate. And yeah, Tampa Bay is willing to scrum it up in there. But I think where Tampa Bay goes is you look back at Florida when it's 5-4, when it's high scoring. You even look back at that Carolina Tampa game when it was 8 goals in the second period. That's the identity of Tampa Bay. And if they're not able to do it, this is where the Islanders I will be wrong, and the Islanders will take this series.
Yeah, they have to find a way. They really do. I mean, to your point that you take Braden Point over anybody on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah, if Hedman and Point were the same age, it'd be hard to go away from Hedman. I know he had a bit of a slow start to his career, but overall he's the best defenseman in the NHL in my personal opinion right now. Yeah. But you know that's a good debate to go off another day. Let alone the fact that Point won in the third round of 2014 draft, and if you did a redraft like we've done in the past here, especially with COVID, that he would probably be number one, if not up there in the top 3 to 5. And that was for those Flames fans. That was a Sam Bennett draft. So, anyways, moving on from that, Tampa Bay, I don't know, they just didn't seem like they were on their game that much. But you got to think that with that veteran presence on that team and John Cooper as your head coach, you got to expect that they'll be back better tonight. Or otherwise, they will be down 2 games to zip going into Nassau Coliseum, and maybe a bit of deja vu against the Blue Jackets, which might not be a good psyche for them at all.
No, I don't think that we talked enough that much about how this was sort of a new opponent that you're not used to. But with Tampa Bay and the Islanders, they faced last year, so it wasn't really new. Montreal Vegas was new, but yeah, there was 2 teams that were really familiar with each other, but Tampa, I think both Tampa and Vegas to a lower extent, but certainly Tampa felt like they were trying to feel each other up, feel out the process, and the Islanders came in and were like, we're ready to go here. Let's go. Let's do this.
Well, if they are feeling out the process, they'll be left behind, especially with that team over there and on the island. They know their identity. They know what they need to do to be successful within the NHL and within the playoffs. If people are surprised that they are there within the Final Four, they shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. Then you're not paying attention to the full picture and what they have been building for the past, ever since they lost, or even before. Yeah, once they won that first series, when was that? That was about 4 or 5 years ago. 4 years ago. It was before John Tavares got traded. And yeah, they had that's when they started building it.
They swept the Penguins the first time.
That's right. Yes. I'm trying to remember who scored that goal, because he was a Calgary Flame for a bit there for 1 year. I don't think it matters too much, but yeah, maybe Kev, you can search it up, or I will at some point. We can revise that. But yeah, they if you are surprised about it, they've been building this team for a very long time, getting Barry Trotz in after he won the cup, and there's a bit of a feud between him and ownership with the Washington Capitals. That's a massive win for that organization, for getting him involved, and not to mention just their depth. They can roll every single line and feel very confident within that, especially within that fourth line that we talked about before with Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck. So Tampa Bay has to prove tonight that they can come out and not be wondering and feeling out the process. They need to come out with a vengeance and just start shooting pucks on net, because Varlamov, as good as he is, he's no Vasilevsky, and if you get the pucks on net for him, then for sure he can show his ugly colors a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah, especially if you can get a goal on him early, I think it does seem to rattle him a little bit for sure. We've seen that so far. It wasn't the 10-goal Graham Mosiman Jordan Eberle's going to get 10 goals Jordan Eberle that you were figuring out, right?
No, it was someone else. But I can search it up at a different time, and we can revise that, because I'm sure our audience doesn't really care, but that's all right.
Fair. We'll jump into some other news and notes that were going around here as just to jump to the Canucks here. Report from Rick Dhaliwal, and it looks like that they're looking at a 3-year deal for Pettersson and a 4-year deal for Quinn Hughes. And the negotiation that they're comparing Pettersson with is, which is it's a transition here, is Matthew Barzal. And we have a poll question on that at podcast. Follow us at Podcast Hockey. And it is, as I pull this up here, give me a quick moment. Is it fair for Canucks management to compare Elias Pettersson to Matthew Barzal in contract negotiations? 50% of people say yes, fair. And then would split on no, Pettersson is better, no, Barzal is better. Wow. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
Yes. And let me preface this, that I think it's a fair comparison in the sense that with him having his contract negotiation, it wasn't last year, but it was the year before for Barzal. Maybe it was last year, but it all has to do with the timing, where you are at within the organization that you're in, and the organizations that you're comparing to. You do have a younger team within Vancouver in comparison to the Islanders, but they are very similar players. I truly believe, and I think it's a fair comparison, just because of where we are with the cap, where we are with just in general of the state of the NHL as a whole. For those people who think that either one of them is better, that's a fair comparison, but I would love to hear your arguments within that. And so you can message me at Gordhouse09 on Twitter, and we can have that debate, or even the Hockey Podcast, because I can't wait to hear what Sean and Tyler and Chris have to say about it as well, because I know that they would have very much a polarizing opinion, I'm sure, within that conversation. So I think that's very fair.
Well, no, Sean, to be fair to Sean, if you're voting no, who is a good comparison for Pettersson in the contract negotiations? So he does see it as he said he thinks that that's fair. So I think it's a fair comparison. I mean, if you're Pettersson's camp, you can argue that he scored 20. His first 2 seasons, he's over 25 goals, and Barzal's got over 20 once in his season. So that would be maybe a counter argument. But I do, and maybe you haven't heard consistency issues from Pettersson, but I don't think that that's an unfair comparison at this particular point. I think that I would put them right now probably on the same train.
Yes. By the way, I found it. It was 2015-2016 Islanders, and it was Alan Quine who scored that game-winning overtime goal in Nassau Coliseum.
Fair enough. Thanks. I was looking back at 1819, so that's why. Alan Quine.
Yeah, not like it matters, but
it sort of did.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on the Pettersson Hughes situation and the Sedin situation. Like, share, subscribe for that. Former Flame Dougie Hamilton has been given permission by the Carolina Hurricanes to speak to other teams. That's not a guarantee, though, that Dougie Hamilton is leaving, but the idea would be a sign and trade. I'm kind of looking at this as like just Carolina not saying we want Dougie Hamilton to go, but just give teams let's see if we can't get a deal done with Dougie Hamilton instead of losing him for nothing. Let's see if we can do some sort of sign and trade.
Sign and trades are hard. I don't remember, or I can't remember the last time, or if it has ever been done within the NHL, or especially within the past decade or two. Nothing has come to my mind. And if you're Dougie Hamilton, obviously it's working in Carolina, and if they can figure out a way to get a good deal done for 8 years, then let's get it done, man. You're surrounded by such a good, solid core, and if, say for instance, depending on where he goes, he might not do as well depending on what defensive partner he has with him. Because if you have a Mark Giordano, which he was with for the majority of the time here in Calgary, then you're going to succeed. Or if you have, like I said, that defensive core within Carolina, the Slavins, the Pesci's of the world over there, and Brady Shea as well. All those players in the top four are spectacular defensemen who could play with Dougie Hamilton, and Dougie Hamilton's warts and his faults won't be as severe because they are so defensively sound back there. I think that if you are Dougie Hamilton, if you're looking for the payday, okay, fine. But if you're looking for success, I think you should find a way to stay there. Also, depending on whether or not Rob Brind'Amour will stay. We don't know that yet. All it is if Brind'Amour walks, what type of team is going to be showing there? Because Rob Brind'Amour, if he is a high, arguably one of the most underrated coaches in the NHL, and probably one of the best coaches in the NHL because of what he can get out of his players. So there's a lot of what ifs within that organization right now, and especially that owner who has been shown to be a bit frugal with his money and not wanting to pay top dollar for certain positions in that organization, like the GM, as an example. So maybe it's not the best fit for him, and maybe he's looking for something else. But the fact that that type of defenseman, that type of player has been moved, and as many times as he has within his NHL career, which is Boston to Calgary to Carolina, and now potentially somewhere else, man, there has to be something going on within Dougie Hamilton that we aren't seeing, because we were criticizing Boston and Calgary for not having the right dressing room, quote unquote, to help that type of player and that type of personality thrive within that market. So if it happens once, okay. If it happens twice, well, maybe there's something there, but it looks like it's happening again. And this is all speculation, but if he's looking for a payday, or if he's looking for a fresh situation, then maybe he's just a freak of nature, and I mean that in a very genuine way, in a good way, because he is so talented, he is so good, and he doesn't have to be a big bruising defenseman, but he can skate like the wind. He has a hell of a shot, and he's been in top. Oh man, I believe he's been in top 10 scoring within or goals for defensemen for years now. So he definitely is a very highly touted player. But once again, where else is he going to thrive if it's not going to be Carolina, and especially not in a hot hockey market like a Boston, like a Calgary? Potentially you could see him going somewhere else that isn't really as notable for being a hockey market. There's so many questions within him. And before, like I said, in Boston and Calgary, it was more about the organization and the locker room. But if it's happening this many times, then you got to question, if you are an organization, you got to question whether or not he'll be a good fit within your organization. And long term, if you're going to go 8 years, then you have to make it work.
Well, a couple of things here with Hamilton. I think, first of all, as much as people are loving Dougie Hamilton and he can get paid, I think some of that credit deserves to go to Jacob Slavin, who is one of the top defensemen in the NHL without question. That's the first thing. Second, I do agree with you in terms of the red flag part with Dougie Hamilton, and I'm not sure what that is. But it's a red flag, and maybe that. But I think this is, Sean said it too, it's a negotiating tactic, I think, for the Hurricanes as well, just to see him see what he can get. I don't think that the Hurricanes are necessarily wanting to let him go. I think this is more about, let's see what you can get in the market. And if there's a trade, we'll do it. If not, then that will be fine. I think that's interesting as well. And then with Rod Brind'Amour, we said it with the Jack Adams. I said that when we discussed that. I think he should win the Coach of the Year. I admire the work that Joel Quenneville has done, and I admire the work that Dean Evison has done. But you look at what Rod Brind'Amour has done in terms of developing a culture in Carolina. Those bunch of jerks. That's been because of Rod Brind'Amour, and I think I think we need to give more credence to the fact that this isn't always about the most improved team and the most surprised team, but how well the team has done. Finishing first place is an accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure. He should get the accolades that he does deserve, and it really shows. His comments to Vasilevsky at the end of last round, shows how much of how much respect he has for hockey players and the respect that's given in between. So I really hope that the Canes can get him on board for a long-term contract. But if he doesn't, like I said, I think that if he'll go wherever he wants to go, period. And who knows? That could be Seattle if he doesn't do well there. And God, that would be a massive win for Ron Francis and Seattle Kraken if that's the case, because you are watching a few different coaches getting snatched up by other teams.
Yeah, and remember with Brind'Amour too, the other thing with Brind'Amour is it's not about his contract; it's about getting his assistant coaches the contract. So that's
why, and I think training staff too. I think it's all around.
Yeah. Sean is chiming in. Can't come on the show, but who is better between Barzal and Pettersson? I know he's busy. I got to give him a couple of jabs though. He gives us jabs.
Oh, absolutely. So never say sorry to giving him jabs.
It's not about who's better between Barzal and Pettersson, but whether or not they're close enough to use a comparison, a measuring stick for God. I think we both said that. Yeah. I think we agree there. The Canes have to make a decision with the blue line with the expansion draft. Moving on from Hamilton and a sign train is an option. Sure, that I think that's. But that's we'll see about that. That's we're kind of on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Sean. That's something we didn't even talk about. Overall, that would be the best case scenario, depending on who's coming back for the Dougie Hamilton, because you are going to be losing for me, that's my expansion team that we're doing on the hockey podcast too, that will be presenting before the expansion draft. But it's either potentially going to be Brady Shea or a Pesci. You don't want to lose either one of those guys, but if you have to, then man, that's a big blow.
Fair. Speaking of coaches, to move us to our next topic is Gerard Gallant, who I predicted would join the New York Rangers, has joined the New York Rangers. I think the Rangers I think that they're in on this Jack Eichel trade for sure.
Yep.
I think that they're pushing. I think, whether maybe James Dolan, John Davidson, and Jeff Gordon were not on the same page here. But I think that the Rangers are pushing their chips into the middle of the poker table. Now, I'm not saying that they have the best hand to do it, but they're starting to push some chips in. And I think that that's what bringing in Gerard Gallant signifies.
Yeah, Gerard Gallant, he is a coach that can push your team over the top to be a contender. And obviously ownership thought that they should have been a contender this year, and they really weren't. But you do have real good chips within that organization that you could potentially give to, or not give, but trade for a Jack Eichel, which would be a crazy 1-2, potentially 3 punch down the middle with Zibanejad, Ryan Strome, who actually has come out within the past 2 years and been a very strong, good player for the organization. And adding that person, or adding a Jack Eichel down the middle, I think would be very scary for that team. And especially if Jack Eichel has say to a certain extent of where he can go, which I don't think he does, not until next year, as far as his contract goes. But being on Broadway and in the lights of New York, that lifestyle I think would really maybe detriment him or benefit him, depending on who he's surrounded with. But yeah, you have 2 goaltenders in Georgiev and Shesterkin that could be on the way out, and you can have, instead of having that tandem, because they are such good goalies that and who have played well within the past years. Both of them are 25. Shesterkin is an RFA as of this summer and needs to get a contract. And then you have Georgiev at a shade under $2.5 million for 1 more year, and then he's an RFA who has arbitration rights as well. So, man, if they can somehow find a way to make a big splash within potentially even Dougie Hamilton, who knows? They could be in on everything right now. But you do have to think that organization, that the ownership does think that they can be contenders within, or should have been a contender this year, and that nothing happened. And there was a philosophical difference between the GM and management in comparison to ownership. And that's maybe the reason why they walked away from those guys and brought in Chris Jury to be the GM, right? Jury's the GM there.
GM.
Yeah. So he, anything's on the table right there. And I think that's the probably number 1 trade spot right there would be to trade for Jack Eichel. I just don't know if Buffalo wants to go down that road with being in the same conference as New York, because of that. And that might be a deterring factor. But at this point, you got to get the best return as possible, no matter where you go with the Jack Eichel. But yeah, it sounds like New York is going all in, or trying to push their chips all in, as you said, Kev.
One video we do have is Sean is doing a video on why you should take a shot at Sam Reinhart, restricted free agent. I'm going to do a video why actually the Flames should go after Sam Reinhart instead of Jack Eichel. That is a hot take, I know, but I'd love to be on that one. We should do one. We'll do one. Yeah. We'll debate that. All right. Once you're kind of calmer in your life.
It's fucking chaos in my life right now, but yeah, I'm love to do that. And all the for our fans out there, for our listeners, subscribers, we'll the amount of content that we'll be pushing out here pretty soon is going to be massive, and we plan on being a running force within the podcast industry. So be ready for that, and we'll we hope to do you guys right, and let us know what you guys want us to do too. Send us messages, and we do focus on 2.5 teams, mostly Calgary and Vancouver, but I say the half team is my other team, Toronto. But if you want us to spread our wings a bit more, which we definitely have the knowledge and the know-how to do for any other team that you want us to do, we're more than happy to do that too.
Yes. So like, subscribe, share for sure. Finally, Jeff Ward, former Flames head coach, interim coach, he was put in a very difficult situation, I think, overall. I think that's a very fair way to say this, but he's landed on he has finally landed his feet onto the Anaheim Ducks coaching staff. I think what was going on here was Brad Shaw was under consideration for Anaheim. I think Kirk Muller was in that as well. Yep. And Jeff Ward ended up there. Listen, I know that Jeff Ward was – look, I know Flames fans didn't end up liking Jeff Ward, and it looked like a mess, but he was put in a very difficult situation with the way that he had to come in after the Bill Peters situation. And the season did not get off to a good start, and I think that just things implode. I think the Sam Bennett situation didn't help him. I think there were so many things that were working against him that ultimately I really hope he does well at Anaheim. He is, from all intents and purposes, he is a very good man, and I hope the best for him.
Yeah, me too. If we can just take not a microscope look at it and take a look at the big picture here. When he took over for the Flames, he had a winning record in the regular season. I don't know where this animosity is really coming from. Overall, I think he was a good I do know where the animosity is coming from, but I think overall the bigger picture is that he was a good head coach. He had a hard time deploying his players, and I think that's where the warts are within Jeff Ward, and he wasn't able to get the best out of his players because he was labeled and is labeled as a player's coach, if you will, that could be potentially get pushed over by the players because of their opinions and what they want and not what is best for the team. So I think that him as a head coach, maybe not the best situation, but I think him behind Dallas Deacons down there in Anaheim, I think is a very, very good spot for him. Not as a big hockey market. Obviously the lifestyle, amazing. And he could, I think he could thrive within that coaching staff and within that organization because he has been a really good assistant coach or associate coach. He was an associate coach with Calgary ever since he joined the club here in 2018-19. And he was a part of that Boston Bruins club that won the cup in 2011. So happy for him and hope he does well down there.
Yeah, I think I want to see good people succeed. I think it's about people, and for me, it's about allowing the humanity in the game. And he's certainly a good human. Just was caught in a very bad situation. So yeah, all the best. And who knows? In Anaheim, that's an interesting situation there as well. Sean gives another little pot shot to Devin. Finally, Devin admits that the Leafs can only count as half a team.
Now, the reason why I said my other favorite team on the Pocky podcast here, I know that there are people like Sean and Tyler who can't stand Maple Leafs and Maple Leafs media and fans overall. So that's why I said half, because the hockey podcast doesn't really want to recognize them as a team or talk about them too much because of the amount of media that they do get. But I love them. I really do. So, but I'm not a typical Leafs fan, just so that everybody else knows out there.
Hey, yes, there is the media out there. There is media out there that praises them to the ends of the earth for sure. But then you also get You also get people like John Viveros, who's very hot take hockey, is probably one of the hardest people as a Leaf fan, hardest on that team. Like, even Steve Dangle. I mean, he's, like there is some people out there, to be fair, that is pretty harsh on this. Jeremy has a suggestion for content. What about a mock entry draft? Or was that already done during the Draft Lotto podcast? We actually are going to do a mock entry draft. That is actually something that we are going to be doing. So thank you, Jeremy. But we are going to be doing that as well. I think Tyler and Chris are in for that. I think I'm not.
I'm not 100. I don't think Chris is. I think Tyler might be. He's on the fence about it. But I know that you, Kevin, me, and Sean and I will be doing one for sure. Not the full rounds. We'll just do the first round.
Yeah, but can you imagine?
Oh my God.
No, just the first round. So let's end it. Let's finish there. We will be back. I think, my understanding, I'm just confirming, but Joel Gaudette, producer of Sportsnet 650, is also going to join us for some recaps. He is a Habs fan as well, so we'll get him on. So keep an eye out if we're going to do Wednesday night or Thursday morning. We haven't figured that out yet, but we will be recapping after Game 2 of Canadiens Golden Knights. Also, I will be putting up the preview later today of our what I'll call far too late video of the Isles and the Lightning series preview, just because we did that, so we have that clip. And also we'll have the clip up tomorrow. If Mark Giordano should be left unprotected and the Seattle Kraken should pick him up, so that's also coming up as well. So we got that clip working. So my goal, Devin, is to have a video out every day. That's my goal.
I love it. It's content on content. Let's go. Let's give the people what they want.
Yeah. Exactly.
You might not be the people's champ because that's already taken, but you can be the people's podcast champ.
That's yes, the people's podcast champ. But how do we follow you?
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Sean Beardy Canuck 03, Tyler TNOBLE, Chris is Schneid's SCHNEIDZ, KEVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast, and I don't know what that means. More Kevin. That's all what we all need. More Kevin. Thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.